we should stand.
Here.
Mr. Manners? Here. Mr. Stoll?
Here.
Item number 3 is
No, we're not going there.
Not gonna do that.
Support.
Obama support.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. 4 is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March.
Approve.
Motion by Mr. Manners.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Item number 5.
Correct,
This is
sorry.
2015 on there.
Apologies.
Sorry. $10. We have 480.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a couple of notes. I left the budget as it was finalized. We did have a couple, as you guys recall, unbudgeted expenses for various things, so I left it as it sat final. The couple unbudgeted items were the building addition that we put on Building 7. It was roughly $33,000. And then you can also see there that we had the unbudgeted Hangar 1 expense of roughly $140,000. So if you just pull those two items out and look at what we budgeted versus our expenses minus the unbudgeted items, it was roughly $710,000 of expenses, or 86% of the way through. So we did have a balanced budget. Obviously, I just wanted to show you what our budget looked like with final expenditures and revenues. And then also another note on there is right at the end of the fiscal year, we received a full load of 100 lead avgas in, which is an asset for us, but it shows it as an expense, so $27,000 as well.
Updates on the pending legal actions.
The Russman account has been on there for a couple of months. I'm in process of filing the paperwork. I had another discussion with the tenant today. They have promised us that they will pay in full by the end of this month. I'm going to go ahead and process the paperwork while we're waiting for that. See, then we can always withdraw that paperwork. The PAPKey plane is still the same story. The plane that's parked out there, we do have a boot back on the plane, so it's not going to go anywhere until the airport's paid in full. The Stanley Associates and the Campo Brothers are current tenants, and we're just trying to work down. The Campo Brothers seems to be about that every time this time of year, and they get caught up in the summer. I stated last meeting I'm trying to settle up with Jaeger. It was a tenant, a T-Hangar tenant that moved out without notifying the airport. And we're trying to settle that out. I haven't reached a settlement yet. So the pay at emergency account, I need to reach out to that tenant. If you recall, we approved a special lease in case that account ran past due. I have not had a discussion yet. I noticed that when this billing cycle came out. So I need to have a discussion with the tenant to see what's going on there, status is on that account. And I'll report back to the commission.
And on the pending legal actions for the Rush and Dance GI and
No.
Savvy.
Sorry, if that was your original question. I apologize. I'm through the past due rent summary, but no update, no change on pending legal.
Planning on, yeah.
Correct. Those have been written off. Just moved them into the pending legal. Correct.
So moved.
Motion, Paul.
Aye.
All opposed, say Mike?
Just a very brief update for the commission. We have officially started our runway project today. We gave them the start work order. It's signed. So they have started preliminary doing some demolition work, breaking concrete on the south end of runway 422 and some basic hauling of the material out. It's a slow start. They just kind of wanted to get a jump start on that, but I expect them to be fully mobilized within the next week, getting more equipment on there now. So I think we'll start seeing more activity and some materials being hauled into the airport as well as being hauled off, probably fully ramped up in the next 2 weeks. Correct.
Can you give us a summary of that meeting?
I sent you a summary of that in an email, but the major complaints or concerns from the nearby residents were just the amount of trucks we're going to be having, really utilizing the East River Road for safety reasons, and then the current condition the road is in. A lot of residents had concerns on wear and tear on it. The previous runway project paved a construction entrance off of East River. So we held several meetings with the fire chief, the contractor, and the chief of police looking at the safety aspects of it. We have a final meeting tomorrow to really address that issue with the contractor and our engineers and make sure we believe we're going to be using the Grow Road entrance through the airport maintenance and DPW shop for that. So that would relieve a lot of the concerns there. The other issue that popped up is really just a general concern about dust control and dirt and things like that. So I think that's going to really take the engineer and the airport staying on top of our contractor, which I feel we have a very good relationship with. So they'll be using water probably in the drier days for dust control, as well as they have a backup broom truck. So I think they'll, it's not going to be perfect. This is a large project. I mean, there's going to be a mess, but we'll do the best we can to mitigate those issues. So the feedback we're getting from the public on the actions we're taking seems to be positive, and they're received a lot of thank for reaching out to the local public and getting their input, and they seem to appreciate it. And so we'll continue to work on that. The plan is to have another meeting with the same residents, probably another couple weeks down the road, with Township Manager Riem and myself as a follow-up, and just kind of get updates from them, any future concerns we can address, things like that. So but with the start of the project to date and breaking, I haven't had any other complaints. Correct. That has been addressed. We had the project scope's a little different. The last project, I think they weren't managing the contractor properly. We had a batch plant on site for concrete, and they would start the batch plant up at 3 or 4 in the morning to get material moving through it. With this project being asphalt, we don't have a batch plant on site, so that addresses the huge issue there. And, they were really looking for us to enforce the times. So the times we'll be running is 7, 5:30 or 6 every day. Shouldn't go beyond that. I asked for, obviously, give us leniency if we're running until 6:15 and we said we're going to be done at 6. If they're in the middle of an asphalt pave, they got to finish that pave. But generally, we'll confirm to those times. The contractor has the option in the contract to work Saturdays. We don't anticipate them working every Saturday, but it's just a timing issue. They have 175 calendar days from today to complete that project. So if we start having weather delays or other delays, they're going to have to speed up and use those Saturday dates. But any other starting before 7 a.m. or running after in the evening or using Sundays requires our authorization, which we would definitely notify the public that we're going to speed stuff up. But I don't anticipate that. It was closed this morning when they started. That was the first thing they do, is put out water barricades, or like an orange water barricade with flags on top to mark it. Our 1735 secondary runway will remain open for the length of the project, so we can at least still service our clients. They have, like I said, 175 calendar days from today, so I think that puts us in the second week of October. a hard date I couldn't tell you at this point. A lot of it's weather dependent. The last month is really how they finish up, planting seed, marking, painting the runway, things like that. So there's some variables in there, but 175 calendar days is a hard date in the state and federal contract. Correct. Yep. They've got the electrical off now, and they started pulling the cans, and they've been doing work on our runway vault. It's beginning today, so a lot of it's running simultaneously.
That reads based upon the Commerce Department manager. Section of this resolution.
Or
Support by Mr. Paul.
Apologize, I don't think I included that number. It was just shy of 10,000 square feet. It was about 9,870, if I recall. Sorry, I thought I put that on the building diagram. I didn't include it in there. Correct.
Taking it out to see how this.
I think a year is kind of a good feeler for both parties because it leaves us a little bit of flexibility in the building should we get a tenant in there that would like the whole facility, or down the road if we look at subdividing another facility into smaller units, then that gets them that. I mean, they believe they'll be here long term. It's just they felt a 1-year initial lease would be best just to kind of get settled because it is a large jump for them too. They were originally looking at subleasing that building from our previous tenant, and then that deal fell through. They ended up renting office space from us in a year or two. I think we approved that about 4 or 6 months ago. And then they've been growing rapidly, so they need more space and more storage area, and I think that building will really suit their needs. But again, I feel it's a longer term tenant, but 1-year commitment may be best for both parties at this time.
Mr. Stoll.
Do they have aircraft?
No. Nope, not that I'm aware of.
Questions or comments? We've got a motion.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Subcommittee reports, and we have none tonight. Move on to item number 9, which is discussion items.
Thank you, Ron. Basically, I just wanted to bring to your attention that we have an issue previously on 189 properties. Properties are owned by the airport, so was little or no other than personal property tax levied on any of the tenants. And about 2 years ago, the assessing department decided they would assess these properties for basically the same rate as they assess all properties. What that resulted in was probably an increase of 30 or 40% in the lease rates to our tenants. What it also generated was I have very little ability to collect without exiting our tenants, which are probably not the way we want to go. So I've had some conversation, and I'm going to go forward. As you can see, a couple of these, Rush Firebrick is one that we have in litigation right now, which is a fairly large one. Got some issues with Monkey Business Property Ed Association. Dance Grow Seals in litigation. I think Stanley is a valid tenant. I don't think there's an issue with them. I think they're going to come through. I just want you to know that this is an issue that's cropped up. They don't have a means without literally going out, and because their leases, all of the leases that these people sign, taxes are in addition to the lease, so they would be in violation of their leases. I've talked with the assessing department, and we've restructured tax base on these properties. I can't tell you what they restructured them to because I haven't seen them yet. When I get that, I'll bring it back. But I just want you guys to be aware that this is an issue that's hanging out there. Probably attempt to rectify it through negotiation, mediation with these guys, but stands right now, I have no means to collect. But it is on the tax roll, and I will have to do something at some point, or this commission will have to act at some point, decide how we're going to handle this, because it can't just float forever. I mean, we've got to make a decision on it. I want you to know that it's out there, and I'll be working on it. Mike will be working on it, and we'll see if we can come up to some kind of a settled agreement with the tenants and without losing the tenants. I would hate to have to do that. I mean, that's. Well, the state of Michigan came in and did a 20-point review on our system. They specified that any of these properties that we lease out needed to be property tax assessed to those properties. They didn't say how much. They just said they needed to. My contention to that was a property owned by these individuals, it's owned by the airport. Township is exempt from taxes, so why would we levy taxes on something that is really in a tax-free zone? And the argument is still in process. I don't know how that's going to work out. Township is, any of the township properties obviously are exempt from taxes, and these are township properties, even though and it was just, I think it was an issue with the state assessing department. They made a decision, and nobody there at the time fought it. Fortunate. So now we're fighting it from the tail end of it, but important to know that for this commission to know that these are out there, and at some point in time we're going to have to address them. Well, as I said, I had a conversation with the assessing department, and they reassessed. I don't know what they reassessed to. My suggestion was down to $1. I don't know how far that went. I haven't looked at those yet because they haven't been published yet. So when I take a look at the new ones, we'll know whether this is going to be ongoing or whether this will be the end of it and this is what we have to address. I'll follow up. I just wanted Mike to put it on here because I'm going to put some pressure on Mike, and I'm going to go to these tenants and see if we can't come up with kind of a compromise within the law. I'm not sure. I have a lot of latitude, but short of evicting tenants, which obviously we don't want to do.
Is there any reason why on this to that amount?
I think this was here. I think this is maybe even part of is this part of legal action, Mike?
Not listed on that. I believe trying to recall back, I believe the Dance Grows Eel, we did put it in the judgment. I don't recall. I'd have to go back and look, but it's not shown on our balance sheet.
But I don't know why you wouldn't put it on there.
On there, yep.
Obviously, it's 189 property, so obviously it come back. No, we have not. See, we can't send these. Normally, if someone is arrears taxes on the island, we send it forward to Wayne County. Wayne County reimburses us, and they handle the collection process. They don't do that on 189 properties. They tell the township to treat them like personal property. So the whole burden is on us. County's not involved in it at all. They don't really care, none of this money. But if we were to collect it, because it is listed as property tax, a third of it would go to Wayne County and a third of it would go to the school. The other third would come back to the
Questions for Mr. Van Allen?
One quick question.
Mr. Foley?
What happens to the people if you do get them reduced?
There have been a few that have paid, some of the smaller ones. Hopefully we've already handled the situation with major reduction, so they don't have to deal with it going forward. It is part of the state Assessment Tribunal Act. We had a 20-point review, and this was part of it.
Right.
Whether it was handled properly or not, I don't know. I'm not involved in that end of it. They hand it to me and say, collect it. Well, I can't collect it if... Now I'm kind of in on the tail end of it. When I saw it, when it came to me, I said, we need to bring this in front of the commission. Aware of it. And then it's up to me and Mike to handle this thing. And I'll probably have to go to the tribunal. There is no method to just make it go. Otherwise, we'd do that, but we have to follow the state law.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And I had asked Mike to, under my report, a couple meetings ago, when vehicle development, there was some discussion wanting to purchase the property. We had, as you know, over about a year's worth items that we talked about during that negotiation. Building 63, or what it might cost for us to build. We had some discussion about building a new building there that was going to be a multi-tenant property, and we really didn't have our arms around what it would cost to build, and therefore. So we had, I remember we had preliminary plans to at least to the point where cost of 2 or 3 meetings ago question about it and to the township board as to why we were not prepared to sell the vehicle development, besides the fact, and most importantly, was that offer was less than what praised at. So obviously that was the biggest reason. Questions ourselves as to so I guess I'd like to hear from the rest of what their position is, and I think it's something we need to move forward.
Just a couple of comments. When we initially looked at this, we had some funding mechanisms in place. However, since we initially looked at this, runway project has moved forward to the tune of $1,000 our share, and vehicle development has moved out. I think at this point in time, I don't see the funding available to move forward with any plans that we might derive from any of the drawings or plans that we've got, short of going out for bonding. And beyond that, I think probably we should take a look at, maybe put this on my personal opinion, maybe put this on a back burner until such time as we see what's going to happen with the vehicle development building, we've leased out part of it. We've got somebody coming in to look. Maybe we get some activity in that particular building. Want to reevaluate our lease structure with 61 with the rental issue. That's the way we want to. All of those, one basket, everything aligned there, then perhaps we can move forward. Not sure, we may have a tenant in one of the spec buildings that may not be around for too much longer, as I understand it. Have some issues with pay.
Correct. There's, some potential. Have to look at it. As I'll report back. He is on our past due summary again.
And we're sitting on what? That's a 5,000 square foot?
5,000 square foot, correct.
That's size 5, so we'll have a unit available. I'm not sure on what we can realistically lease out and fund any projects going forward, because we're going to be cash strapped for a few years here until we get this runway. My thoughts.
Any other comments?
Just a quick question. Have we put it on the market yet? Is it listed?
It's listed through some larger ones, but not. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought on what the one large listing site is. Not listed through a broker or anything like that. We do actually have this one partial tenant right now, and I have a meeting tomorrow with another client that's interested in a larger portion of the building, and that's just through grassroots phone call to me. So
we are getting some interest.
We are getting interest on it. But I will say, one of the things, like the lease we just approved here tonight, is somebody who's interested in 10,000 square feet, which is, something we've looked at dividing that building up into. So that was one conversation I had with that tenant is, down the road, it is possible we could divide across the street and move you into there if we get a tenant that's interested in this building. So, that deal could go a couple different ways. It's a challenge right now because the way the utilities set up in that building are going to be difficult to negotiate between two different parties. It's not really an easily subdivided building. If we had another client that would take over the rest of the building with the way the lease we just approved in there tonight, that would probably work pretty well. But if we start looking at getting 3 or 4 tenants in there at 10,000 or 20,000 square foot each, it's going to be challenging.
That's one heat source?
There's box furnaces in there, but then there's also 2 different transformers outside. There's one that powers the back. That's a 483 phase and is very expensive to have on. If I recall, it's about $500 to $600 a month just to have it on if you don't use any power to draw into it. But luckily, the lease we approved tonight sits on the smaller transformer that's equipped to power the computers, electrical, and the furnace and everything. They're subdivided that way. So that'll save, obviously, that tenant's responsible for utilities, but that makes the bill affordable for them.
I would think that if we get a tenant, that could negotiate in the lease because 463 phase is a pretty specialty.
Yep.
You're running some pretty heavy equipment. You really don't need that. So I would see that issue being addressed by a tenant who would need that kind of service.
Correct. In the future, that's something that can be stepped down. We would just have to purchase another transformer and have an electrician do the work. It just depends on how a deal would be structured. I agree.
I think at our last meeting or 2 meetings ago, self-market that building instead of listing it with a broker. Self-market it for a while and see how.
Suggested to Mike that they'll go to Crane's advertisement in Crane magazine. A lot of commercial review.
If I recall, I think before Vehicle Development put in there, I remember I have emails from them. If I recall, I put an ad there for a couple of series, and then once the building lease, we took that out, and I'll look at it again. I haven't done that. I don't recall the cost, but it wasn't a large one.
There you go.
We've already talked about making decisions and then not having enough information to make decisions. And so if we put this off, and run into another problem, then we'll just have to revisit it again, and then there'll be more delay. I'm assuming that this architectural services is going to include spec buildings other than the existing buildings we have. Is that correct?
We had discussion about it being, as it relates to dividing up 63 for multi-tenants. We also had discussion about them doing some kind of schematic design, I would call it, for a spec building of maybe 20,000 square feet. So at least we could get our arms around what it would cost. I mean, right now, we're sort of shooting in the dark, having not really a good idea as what it would cost. And, we obviously don't know what the property we're going to deal with. Is there foundations that are buried in the ground, things like that. So we really don't have a good idea what it would cost to do a spec building there. And the intent was, when we had discussion last time, was to get the architect on board, be able to at least have some idea what it's going to cost. And, if we don't do anything for a year or 2 years or 5 years, at least we have an idea as to what it would cost for our next step. So that was the discussion that we had. So.
Right, and that's the sense that I have, is that we may not have all the money in the world, but we've got to take a step forward in either going ahead and thinking about adding buildings, or just put it to bed and say, no, we're not going to do it, that the economy is not good enough to do that.
Mr. Chair, if I may point out to the costs there on the last, I included the proposal from our February meeting. It was $9,800 total. $5,800 of that was to complete the contract that we started, I believe, a year and a half, 2 years ago now, with Sarnacki to look at subdividing 63. For the other $4,000 of that is to look at a spec building, and they were to basically do schematic preliminary designing, and then also get basic construction estimates for subdividing and a new spec building for us and report back. That's what the $9,800 includes. The only thing it didn't include was like a market analysis.
Yeah, and I'm not sure they're the ones that would do the, I'm not sure an architectural firm's going to do a market analysis for you, so
correct.
that really would be part of their scope of the work. Yeah. If you just let me.
Right. Thank you, Luke. Yep, that's when I was.
Our two sites, commercial.
Thank you for.
License.
Thank you. That was the site I was thinking of that we're listening. So.
You were correct about.
Other, Mr. Manns.
Yeah, budgeted for 16 or.
No, it was not.
How long are plans good for? If we did go through this and had the plans drawn up, do they expire?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously the construction estimates will vary years through.
No, understood.
I'm not aware if plans expire or not.
Yeah, we weren't going to get these approved or anything. They were just a schematic to give us some idea as to how it would lay out and how we might be able to subdivide it. If we were going to do a 20,000 square feet, do we divide it in, sections of 5,000 that could be, you could rent 5, 10, 15, or the entire building.
Right,
just sort of some kind of
right.
Layout in how you would install restrooms and things like that in a multi-tenant building. So just to give us an idea as to how you brought service in and how you laid out the facility. But, that's good basically forever. It's just the cost estimate would be what would change over time. And, we could, whenever we were ready, we could, get that updated if we choose to do that. So. Any other comments or questions?
No, I don't have any. I don't have any. I agree with Walt. I agree with you that it's nice to have these plans sitting in front of us. But I think the realistic outlook on this thing is, we want these plans setting on the side so we move when we get some cash, or do we want to wait to get some cash and start before the horse?
Yeah.
Me, I have no objections either way. I'll bring it forward to the board. If you think we should move forward with it, then get some plans so we got some numbers. I'm all for that. I don't see.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'm hearing none. We'll move on to item number 11, which is public comment. Anyone in the public like to make a comment? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 12, which is a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Mann, supported by Mr. Stoll to adjourn at 7:37. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries.